Today, Senator Elizabeth Warren has introduced a bill to extend, or I should say, to drop lower the student interest rates from for 1 year from 3.4% to 0.75% for student loans for higher education. We know that within a couple of months, the loan rate will double to 6.8%. Our next guest will talk to us about why that very well may be missing the point. I imagine we all think it's a good thing, but on the phone, I have Samir Sonti. He is a graduate student from the University of California, Santa Barbara. He is a member of the TA Union, system-wide, and also a contributor to Jacobin. He has written a piece on nonsite.org, Going Back to Class, Why We Need to Make University Free and How We Can Do It. Samir, welcome to the program.
Hey, Sam. Thanks for having me.
So, all right, Samir, let's start with Peter Drucker. You start your piece by talking about him and his perspective on this. Who was he, and why start with him?
So Peter Drucker was he was sort of, I guess he's now considered sort of the father of management science, sort of what all undergraduate and MBA students, in business schools across the country learn when they take their introductory management courses. He was pretty influential in sort of theorizing the science of management in the mid-20th century. He spent a little bit of time with General Motors, writing a book about the corporation, and I think that was in the 50s. And he's basically, sort of given his academic, he sat at MIT for a while, given his academic and sort of his professional activity, he's not someone you would think of as an advocate of an expanded public sector, especially sort of in the day and age we live in today. You're not hearing too many corporate executives talking about expanding the public sector. It's mostly about cutting it. But he was known, and from the 60s on, he was a big advocate of expanding higher education and access to higher education, making sure students, of all income backgrounds could go to college, because he sort of believed that the U.S. was entering in the late 20th century a knowledge economy, sort of moving past the industrial peak, and that education for young people was going to be central. So he was actually an advocate of the state sort of paying for everyone to go to college. And this is a guy who, who's not a friend of trade unions, not a friend of the left by any stretch of the imagination. But I just thought it's so striking how much things have changed in the past 50 years that we got a guy who was pretty much the thinker for modern managers, advocating free higher ed. So that's sort of why I started with that in the piece.
And there's really two arguments that run parallel in this argument that universities should be free, and that is one, this perspective of a member of the corporate class, if you will, who's saying that just in terms of society, from a practical standpoint, it makes much more sense. There's also the argument that you make, and almost in some respects simply just stipulate that by its very nature, we want a citizenry that is educated. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think sort of the main or the underlying argument I want to make here is that higher education, education generally, shouldn't be about training young people for the workforce. It shouldn't be about human capital advancement. It ought to be about having, an educated citizenry that can make, serious decisions, think about politics in a serious way, and that, has the opportunity to learn for the sake of learning. We've got so many incredible people on campuses all across the country, and it's really a tragedy that more young people aren't able to sort of just go and study what they want. And I guess, that sort of links to, my experience teaching on campus. We see so many young people going into majors and studying things that they feel are going to prepare them to get a job to pay off their student loans. And that's not what education ought to be about. Enrollment in the humanities is dropping, which is, a pretty big reflection of that. And we see more and more kids majoring in finance and economics. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with them doing that, but I don't think that most of those decisions are made out of intellectual interest. It's, I think, more sort of material imperative.
Yeah, I mean, it's I asked that only because on this program we tend to have a lot of libertarian callers call in, and they simply do not accept that notion. And maybe this is sort of where it's one of those things where there's not necessarily sort of a perfect argument to make. It's one of those things that people see either take as a tenant of society or not, that we should have an educated citizenry for the sake of having them educated, as opposed to be measured in terms of dollars. But I just wanted to mention that because that's something that sort of you stipulate early in your piece, and it certainly for many of us it's a perfectly reasonable stipulation. But I wanted to point that out, and you also sort of you add that notion of there's also sort of those people who may not stipulate it simply for the sake of society, but for the sake of the citizens, but for the sake of the broader society. So let's talk about why we now see such high debt and what has happened to the education system over the past three decades or so.
So yeah, I mean the origins of student debt really go back to the 1970s. There was a major economic crisis in the 70s, and that's sort of when austerity, as we now understand it, really arrived in the U.S. New York City, had a big, major fiscal crisis in the middle of that decade, and across the country, state budgets started getting slashed. And really, I mean, basically, there's two ways that college is paid for, right? It's either the state contributes resources, or the individual, the student, or their family pays for it. So as state funding started to drop in the 1970s and really picked up, it was sort of a precipitous decline through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but in the 2000s, it just plummeted. And so as that happened, then, the students had to pick up the burden. And the other side of that coin is that during that period, household income completely stagnated. We haven't seen a real increase in wages basically at all since the 1970s. I believe since 1973, real household income has risen about 10%. And during the post-war boom from 1945 through 1973, real household income rose at about 2.7% per year, which works out to basically, during that post-war boom, real household income was rising in 2 years what it's risen over the past 40 years. So that's sort of the story right there. Wages just completely stopped rising, and state support for higher ed plummeted. So the solution is debt. That's where this all comes from. This is not really a new thing. It's been going on for about 40 years now.
And I would add that the studies that I have looked at in this question have shown that as state colleges, state universities rose their tuition rates, it created upward pressure on the university system-wide and inflated the prices of higher education across the board, because as the lowest cost option rose in price, so did the higher cost options, and so it's sort of a perfect storm, as it were, in terms of making college inaccessible. And to the extent that it made it accessible, it made it limited people's options once they got there.